In SharePoint, master pages are created as a file ending in .master. Now, when defining a master page, you are creating a complete web page layout from the opening HTML tags to the closing HTML tags. But you're also marking out areas for content to come later. So in this case, I might say, I don't know what's going to come in this main div section. And what I'll do instead is I'll use these odd-looking tags called ASP:"content placeholder tags. And this marks the spot in this file where we can inject our own content. Now, the user will never see these tags because when they ask for a page that uses this master page, this placeholder will be replaced by whatever content needs to fill it. Now, this is a simple example. In reality, they're always substantially more complex than this. You can't make do with just one placeholder. You actually need to have a lot of placeholders. Think about what the typical SharePoint page has. You've got drop-down menus. You have the ribbon. You have the search box, the tag functionality. This all has to be provided by the master page. Well, you don't want to have to handwrite all the HTML for all these drop-down menus and search box and navigation structure. So in your master page, you don't just have one placeholder for the main content. You need multiple placeholders for your logo, for your navigation, for your search box, for the ribbon. These are all content placeholders. And you'll fill the main content area with your page content, but let SharePoint fill many of the other content placeholders. So let's explore what's inside an actual master page. I'm in a typical SharePoint Foundation team site, open in SharePoint Designer, and I'll see that there is actually a master pages section in my navigation pane on the left. Going into this, I see several files. The ones I'm interested in are the ones that end in .master. These other files that end in .aspx are describing some basic layouts like the welcome page and the search results page. So let's ignore those. I have 3 here that end in .master, and I can ignore 2 of them. The only important one for a typical SharePoint 2010 site without publishing enabled is v4.master. If publishing is enabled, we'd have another master page here called nightandday.master. Now, Microsoft decided in their infinite wisdom to do something in this master page area that trips a lot of people up. You see, every SharePoint site has a specified default master page. And what we mean by that is the master page that the site is using. But the default master page, by default, is not default.master. The default master page, by default, is v4.master. I'm sure that sentence sounded a little puzzling. Here's what's happening. We do have a file called default.master, and it's the one that a lot of people would jump to and assume that this is the one we need to look at. But this is not what we're interested in here. You see, this file is the old SharePoint 2007 style master page because it used to be called default.master. And it's only needed here when you're upgrading an old site. You would never use this one unless you had to as part of a migration from an old version of SharePoint. Now, similarly, there's one here called minimal.master. If you're someone who used the previous version of SharePoint, a minimal master page was a well-known term used for a basic stripped-down master page layout to build our own on top of, but this is not what it is here. This minimal.master file is something completely different, and it's used by SharePoint for some of its internal application pages like settings pages in the Search Center, and pages that use the web-based Office functionality, so we need to leave this one alone too. v4.master is the only important one for us here. Let's take a look at it. I'm going to click in and then click through to edit it. This file will open automatically in advanced mode because we do have access to every piece of this file. If I switch to code view, I'm not seeing any yellow code that's preventing me from typing anything here. Now, as I start to look at this, I can see there's an awful lot of stuff in here, but it is actually including things like the HTML tags and the head tags. Yes, there's a lot of other things going on here, a lot of which is ASP.NET. But as I scan through this, I can probably make a guess that some of the tags I'm looking at are being executed on the SharePoint server to do some interesting things. We have this SharePoint:/CSS link tag here. This, you might imagine, is going to be replaced by the actual links to things like core v4.css and any extra CSS files that we're using. So a lot of what is here in the master page will never be sent to a user's computer. These tags are going to be processed when the page is requested, and it's the result of executing these tags, in this case, to go and look up the CSS information, that's going to be replaced here. And we'll talk about how to inject our own CSS files in a moment. Now, as I start coming down a little further, I'm going to see a lot of these ASP:content placeholder tags. Now, don't worry too much about what the rest of the things are that are going on here, but just see that we've got a lot of content placeholder tags. They're appearing again and again. And as I mentioned in the previous section, the idea of a content placeholder in a master page is we're describing an area that's going to be filled with something. We're creating a placeholder that later will have content for it. Maybe we're providing it, maybe SharePoint's providing it. But there isn't just one placeholder for the main content and one for the navigation. There are dozens of them. Placeholders for the page title, placeholders for the breadcrumb, the top of the quick launch bar, the bottom of the quick launch bar. And again, many are going to be filled by SharePoint itself. Let me switch back to Design View because we can see them here too. To see the content placeholders in Design View as well as possible, I'm going to go to the View section of my ribbon, and under Visual Aids, I'm going to select the section that says Template Region Labels. And while they're a little dim, you'll see these content placeholder kind of little ghostly tags popping up that I can click on. There's one for the site name, one for the page title, one for horizontal navigation, one for the top nav bar, one for the left nav bar. You can also go to the Style section of the ribbon and click the button that says Manage Content Regions. And that shows me that there's actually about 30 different content placeholders that are defined in this master page. Now, you may not care about all of these placeholders, but that doesn't mean SharePoint doesn't. If you were doing a major design rework of this master page, you could delete a few of these placeholders, but there are a lot of placeholders that are required in a master page. And if you remove them, when SharePoint tries to run and tries to find that placeholder and can't, it will error out your page. So we need to be able to experiment a little with our master pages when we're making them. We'll see that next.